Good afternoon, boys and girls, and welcome to the American Hotspur here on Stateside Footy. And joining me today is the talent. It is the talent behind Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, Tottenham till we die. Don't get me wrong, Dermotron just might be the straw that straws the drink, but this guy here, Rayn, is the actual talent behind the entire operation. First and foremost, Rayn, good afternoon, and I hope you're doing well over there in the UK. And second of all, man, we're going to have ourselves a doozy of a show because there is a lot to talk about, not just what happened over the last week, but also tomorrow as well, too, against Manchester United. A very big show indeed. So first and foremost, my friend, how you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. I'm not the talent on THFC TTWD. I'm the fill-in. Dermot is absolutely the talent. That guy has the gift of the gab that I can only hope to emulate or match. So I'm good. It's been an interesting week. It's bizarre to think that the transfer window shut not only 5 days ago, and the fallout that's happened since. It feels like a lifetime ago. And it's still rumbling on. It's still interesting times at Tottenham Hotspur.
I would agree. And the interesting thing from my perspective is the fact that, my day job puts me in a situation where I can't necessarily jump on a podcast on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And so I have the unique ability to sit back in the cut and just listen and gather information and take temperature of the emotion of it. And then seriously, at the end of all of that listening, it still astounds me that Tottenham Hotspur fans still haven't realized that this is exactly who we are. It doesn't matter who is running the show. It really doesn't. We cannot help but step on our dicks every single transfer window. And the interesting thing about this was that, the plan of a guy like Daniel Levy, who is actually a very, very good negotiator, had the wherewithal to take a January transfer down to the end of the window and actually negotiate a deal that was actually pretty damn good for Tottenham Hotspur. There was a method to that madness. And so it came as no surprise that a guy like Johan Lang would try to incorporate the same tactics, except the difference between Johan Lang and a guy like Daniel Levy is the fact that Johan Lang really is just not a talented director of football. On top of the fact that, Tottenham Hotspur put him behind the eight ball prior to the January window by saying, everybody, we got 150 million pounds to spend in the window. And unfortunately, what that does is it has an adverse reaction because now every other director of football in Europe is looking like, goddamn, Spurs are desperate as, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and it is bonkers, isn't it? And we do seem to be a club that uniquely does that, announces that we have a certain amount of money to spend, and it's not like everybody is wondering, do Spurs have money to spend? Man City don't have to announce that they've got money to spend; they just go out and spend it. Liverpool don't have to announce that they've got money to spend; they just go out and spend it. Arsenal don't need. Why are we the only ones who go, we're going to invest and we're going to put 150 million pounds in the kitty to do these transfers? It doesn't. I don't know why. And you're right. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. This is straight out of the Levy playbook. ENIC playbook. At the moment, it feels very muddied between what's what. Was it Levy playbook or was it the ENIC playbook? Because we're just seeing the same thing. Why announce it? Is it to placate the fans? Maybe that is what it is, because obviously we got the Binai statement came out on the day of the big Tottenham protests when we were playing. Was it Burnley? I think it was Burnley. And that the timing of that was it seemed spot on to coincide with fans protesting, and this announcement that we've got money. Let's be clear, Spurs is a very rich club.
Yes.
We're a very and I actually think our wealth and the amount of money that we've got to spend, because we spend a lot of money. We spend more money than Arsenal since Arteta's been in charge. Which is bonkers when you consider the trajectory that Arteta's Arsenal have been on, and at the same time, the trajectory that Spurs have been on in exactly the same time. We've spent more than them. We just spend it badly. So why the need to announce that we've got money when everybody knows we've got money? We're a very rich club. So it feels like it's targeted at the fans.
Oh, without a doubt. Before we actually get into it, please make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and also hit the notification bell as well too, because we have rounded 400 here, and we are making our way to 500. And I suspect that by the time we get to the World Cup 2026, that we will be rounding 5, heading to 6. But in the meantime, do yourself a favor. Once we get to 5, we can do subscriptions and all that good stuff. And that it also doesn't limit the possibility when it comes to guests as well too. So please do yourself a favor, hook your boy up, hit that like and subscribe button, and hit that notification bell as well too. The interesting thing though is that when it comes to those comments, Rayn, it almost pushes a guy like Johan Lang into a corner, because number one, especially with the 150 million pound war chest type of statement, essentially what it does is it means that it takes away Lang's ability to negotiate. Because if you're Monaco and you look at a player like Magnus Galuche and they're like, yeah, it's going to be 55. It's going to be 55 million euros. And we know you have it because, quite honestly, you said that you have 150 million. So it takes away the haggling. It takes away the negotiation. But then Vidic Venkatesham comes out before the Burnley game and talks about wiping the slate clean. He talks about upping the wage structure. And it really puts the onus on a guy like Johan Lang. Because, by the way, Fabio Paratici had nothing to do with this window at all. As a matter of fact, he was busy helping out Fiorentina, landing certain personnel. And that's the thing. It's like, what is a guy who's leaving anyway? What motivation does he have to help this team get better when he knows for a fact that he's got to make sure his next team, when he takes over in February, is going to at least be able to get on the right foot when it comes to the second half of the season. So this was all Johan Lang. And from that standpoint, I'm looking at it like, why would you do this to your director of football? Why would you announce? Because you're absolutely right. Everybody understands that Spurs last year in 2025, when it comes to the Deloitte Money League, they were number 9 in the world when it came to total revenue. And when it comes to the Premier League, they're the third wealthiest team in the Premier League. They don't have to announce. They don't have to announce anything. And you're absolutely right. They can just go out there and spend it. There's nothing positive that comes from doing that. And the only thing you're doing is leaving Johan Lang twisting in the wind, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just Johan Lang, but us. I love to come back to this. It's us who suffer in the end through all of this. A lot of people, I've got some quite quirky views. One of my quirky views is that I really don't like it when people talk about backing the manager, because from my perspective, you shouldn't be backing the manager. You should be backing the club, and you should be backing the fans. And the manager or coach or whoever you want to, they're just grateful recipients of these players who at the end of the day go out onto the pitch and perform for us, not for the coach. We're the ones who pay the money and are their end clients at the end of the day. With Akliouche, the other thing, and the Akliouche saga was also part of this that really drives me nuts. Is this working to the end of the window? I think we were all caught, by surprise when they got two bits of business done relatively early. When
Sure.
they got when they sold Johnson, and everyone was like, "Whoa, okay, change." This is clearly a change in the way that we're working. We've got a player. We're not keen on him. He's not a first team starter. Somebody's offering us good money. We took it and we got rid of him, and then we got another player in straight away. And I can't believe that Atletico Madrid didn't want more money than we paid for Conor Gallagher, because I think he's fantastic. So I was looking at that and I was thinking, this is fantastic. We're getting stuff done early, because I think there was, was it something like 5 or 6 games we had in January? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we had 6 games during the transfer window, not including Champions League, because obviously you need to re-register players to play in the Champions League. That's why Conor Gallagher couldn't play in the Champions League. And we needed players, to play in those games.
Yep.
So I was thinking, right, this is great. We're now working to the most appropriate milestone in the transfer window, the opening window. That's the most important milestone. In the summer, the second most important milestone is the start of pre-season. The third is the start of the Premier League, and then the final milestone is when the window closes. And yet, even though we got those 2 bits of business done, we still defaulted, as you've just said, to the old approach of, we're now going to start working towards the end of the window and try and, haggle some deals, or keep looking and see what's available. All the while, these games, losing to, the Villa in the Cup, all the Premier League games, they're just drifting past us. And I think we'll probably talk about it, but that culminated in a certain Argentinian noting what everybody knows: we've only got 11 players fit. Well, we had a transfer window that gave us the ability to go and get players who could play, and yet
absolutely.
And yet we're talking about Akliouche on the last day.
Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing, and by the way, we will definitely talk about Christian Romero's comments, because I do have an opinion on it. So we'll definitely get into that. But here's the thing, right? And maybe this was part foolish of me for thinking this way. But that being said, I've never really been a Johan Lang type of guy. As a matter of fact, when you look at his lineage with Aston Villa, he was demoted because he was in over his head with Villa. Ultimately, before they decided to get rid of them altogether. And since he's come to Tottenham Hotspur, he's had a deal with the Daniel Levy transfer philosophy. And so from that standpoint, we never really saw a guy like Johan Lang operate without shackles. And one of the things that I was looking forward to seeing exactly whether or not he's actually cut out to be in this role, because now there's no excuses. There is a new, essentially a new board, and apparently they want him to go spend the money and create all these good vibes and all these other things. And so from that standpoint, I sat back and I just said, here's the thing. Me personally, I don't want my opinion to stand in the way of him proving me wrong. I'm always open for people to prove me wrong. But that being said, this was the opportunity. He's not operating under shackles. And so this was an opportunity to definitively say one way or another whether or not he is actually cut out to rebuild this team. And it's not just bringing in your Archie Grays and Lucas Bergvalls of the world. It's an opportunity to potentially bring it, go to PSG and potentially try to finagle a player out of their starting 11, whatever the case may be. Whether or not he has the ability not just to sell this club to players, young players that are making their first step up into this league, but also players that have Champions League experience and those that are smack dab right in the middle of their prime, essentially Conor Gallagher, or maybe better than Conor Gallagher. And he failed. And he didn't just fail, he failed in a massive way. Because this is now the second season where not only was he left twisting in the wind, but he also left his coach absolutely twisting in the wind. We are in the middle of an unbelievable injury crisis. And oh, by the way, there's also a possibility that a Wilson Odegaard could go down, or a Xavi Simons for a few weeks, and then what? And then what? Right? That was the opportunity that was staring him right in the face. It was a massive opportunity to get everybody back in step, and he absolutely failed. And so here's the question, Rayn. Number one, is this more of an indictment on him? Because here's the thing, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't necessarily look like his bosses actually rate him. Because if that was the case, then Paratici wouldn't have been brought back. He was actually demoted back down to trying to get youth through the door, while Paratici focused on senior players. He got bounced back again. And now there's talk of bringing in a new director of football because they like this whole two director of football. Me personally, I just feel like he's on his way out the door. But that being said, if you did this because you don't necessarily rate the manager, then why is he still here? Then make the call.
If you don't rate the manager.
Well, yeah, if you decided that you weren't going to do this, that you weren't going to be active in the window, and you were going to take it all the way down to the end, only to fail, and maybe midway through, after all these results, he's probably thinking to himself, "Well, crap." Even with new players, I don't think it's going. It's probably not going. It's not going to matter one way or another. We have players that are coming back in March and April, and so at that point, what does it necessarily matter to bring players in when we got them? And it's like, to me, it's like, okay, well, here's the thing: if you don't rate the director of football, sack him, and if you don't rate the manager, go ahead and sack him. Because those are the only things that kind of make sense here. Because why did it fail? Like, that's the question. Why did it fail? And if it was failed because of results on the pitch, and you didn't want to back him, and by the way, this is the second manager that Johan Lang has done this to. So if you don't rate him, if that was the reason why, then sack him. But what I don't appreciate is 2 days after the window closes, he goes and does an interview, and then he absolutely gaslights the entire fan base with those words. There was no accountability.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I'll layer some stuff on. It was quite clear from last season that Johan Lang is not a negotiator. He doesn't do the negotiating. He does he seems to be a bit of a scout. He also seems to be a bit of a corporate man around the training ground. I don't really get what's going on there. He seems to be a bit of a corporate stooge around the training ground. Like, he's a bit of a corporate odd job man, but no real sort of responsibility or accountability anywhere. And they keep rolling him out. This dual DOF, I just don't get how this works. I don't understand how obviously in any organization you've got a pyramid of people. Some pyramids are more flat, some are very vertical, and there's always a set of responsibilities and roles and responsibilities and within that organization. But in every organization there's somebody at the top. There's a person at the top who is at the top of that pyramid. That's the way that human beings work. So how we can split up the DOF role into those two positions just doesn't make much sense. But also with Paratici, who in any other organisation, including any other football club, would have been on gardening leave as soon as he announced that he was going to
Yep,
leave the club
absolutely.
and go to a competitor. I know that they're not in our league, figuratively and literally not in our league, but they're still a competitor in our industry. It beggars belief that he was allowed to continue. And I make you right. I don't think he was doing much work for us. He should have just put immediately on gardening leave. The two chaps who we've gone and got from Man City, Lewington and Mawson,
Right.
both
The Rappy guy, right?
Rafi
His name.
Mawson, who's
Yep.
who's basically going to look after player contracts and transfers, and Lewington, who's going to be head of our sort of physio and science and medical and science division. Both of them are on gardening leave at Man City. Man City have gone, okay, you've handed in your notice. You're now going to sit there and do nothing. We're going to make Tottenham wait for you for as long as possible before you can go and work for them, but you're going to go on gardening leave. So it really doesn't make any sense the way that they've kind of organised all of this. And then we've got Lange. Lange had to get Levy to go to Bayern Munich to seal the Tell deal, right?
Yeah. By the way, and that should have been right there where he got sacked, because he is supposed to be the youth whisperer. He is supposed to be the one that can sell the club to players that are making their first step into the Premier League, right? Making that jump up. And he's the one that has to be able to sell the dream of Tottenham Hotspur, that if you come in and you come good, you'll be a club legend, blah, 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 blah. And he couldn't even do it with a guy like Matisse Tell. And by the way, I rate Matisse Tell. I think he's going to be a dynamite football player. But that being said, as soon as that happened and he had to get Daniel Levy to come in to do his job, that should have been the moment. As soon as that window closes, he should have been sacked.
Yeah, absolutely. He's clearly sort of only able to do 80%, if that, of the job. And presumably that is the job, because that's what Paratici does. Paratici goes that far. I do wonder if Lange is sort of a better fit under a Levy model, where Levy made it very, very clear, in that overlap, confirmed what most of us knew, which is no deal got done without him going and doing the negotiations. I don't get involved in transfers. I'm just the one who says yes or no and does all of the financial negotiations. Well, you are involved in transfers. I hate to break it to you, Daniel, but you were absolutely involved in transfers. That you were the cause of many transfers not happening. So so clearly we now have confirmation. So maybe Lange fits under that model, but he doesn't fit under a model where he has to go and do. He has to go and close the deal, because he clearly can't. The other thing that was said in that interview, that there were two other things that really annoyed me. So one was that there was a repetition that we've got players coming back from injury, and I don't know, Steve. This is Tottenham Hotspur. You look at us. You look at the players we've got out. You look at how long it took for Solanke to get back into the squad. It was a good 6 weeks after everybody expected him to come back in, and that's a long time. That's a lot of matches. Absolutely. Kulusevski, I'll be stunned if he plays for us this season. We know Maddison isn't going to be back this season.
He might. He might. He's already, like, the interesting thing is Madison's already on grass. That's the wild thing. And which would be outstanding, considering that cruciate injuries usually are 10 to 12 months. And so I was thinking like May at the earliest. But that being said, if he touches down in late March, that'll be absolutely quite the accomplishment. But I completely understand you. You
understand my skepticism.
Yeah, well, for sure. But I mean, that is not really much of a plan. Understanding that the reason why you're not active is because, like, hypothetically, these players that are out are good players, and eventually they're going to be coming back, and we don't want to muddy the waters. And it's like, dude, you're going to need at least a 35-player first team, like minimum, to compete these days, because we're competing on 4 different fronts. And you're going to need the squad. You're going to need the squad depth in order to be able to accomplish that. Because you understand how this goes with Spurs. There's always going to be injuries. There's always going to be injuries. Maybe this club has more injuries than most teams out there, but it's a thing. And then, from that being said, that there's also going to be young players that don't come good. There's going to be older players that fall off, and so you're going to have to need a squad that gives Thomas Frank the ability to rotate, and being able to keep players fresh. And the fact that we still haven't addressed a backup left center back, we still haven't really addressed a backup left back, we still haven't really replaced Harry Kane, and we sure as shit didn't replace Sonny. And we went into the season this way. We went into the season like this, and then we get injured even more.
And we don't fix it in January.
Don't fix it in January. Like, by the way, I never thought that 11 players were going to come through the door. I really didn't. Like, after Conor Gallagher, I thought that maybe 2 more forward players were going to come through the door. I didn't think a striker was going to come through the door, because we already have 2, and we'll get the third back in a few weeks with Richarlison. But we got Kolobowani and we got Solanke, and I didn't think they were going to address the striker. But I certainly thought that we would get in at least 2 forward players, whether that was Akalushe or maybe they would actually kick the tires on a guy like Raheem Sterling for the rest of the season. And that's what I thought. Because at the very least, in the short term, you plug holes.
Yeah,
and you're essentially telling your manager that not only do you understand his situation, but you're actively grabbing his back in the moment.
Yeah,
you're actually saying, you know what, you're my guy.
Yeah, and that's my point about the whole injuries side of things. Is these players clearly aren't going to play. Davies, his career with Tottenham Hotspur is finished. He won't be back. So we do only have one left back. So they've signed, and I cannot accept that I cannot accept that a 19-year-old Brazilian left back who's played 24 professional games is now going to be our reserve left back. I can't accept that. That's a for the future signing, which I also have a problem for. I'll get onto that in a second. And you're absolutely right. The left wing is a completely glaring problem that we don't appear to have attempted to solve. And we needed it solved. It needed to be solved. Yep. So I think there is some, considering how many times he said it, I think there is some thought process that they cannot sign these players because there are other players who are coming back from injury, despite the fact that, and I'm a student of history tells us these players are not going to come back as soon as we would hope that they could do. Even Maddison, even if he's back March, even if he's back, in 6 to 8 weeks, it's going to be a month worth of easing back in after having so much time off. Steve, it's going to be some time to ease him back into that side. By which time the season's almost finished. So that we didn't do more business, and I agree with you. We didn't, going with 12 players is, is crazy, but we needed like 2 or 3. We needed 2 or 3 more players to be brought in to bolster this squad, and the fact that we would have broken the 25-person squad limit unless we got rid of injured players from that squad list, be damned. We're just say to Madison, I'm very sorry.
Worry about that. Worry about that in the summer.
Exactly.
Right? You have pressing issues in the moment. And by the way, AK Shags brings this up, and he's saying the Kinski signing looks like a travesty. And my feelings got hurt on this one because I actually rate Kinski. And the interesting thing about Johan Lang is when we got him, he said that he had seen him over 12 times, and he completely fits the profile of a manager that is essentially an attacking manager. And when you look at our starting keeper right now, who is not very good on the ball, can't necessarily block shots from distance, and is what I consider a liability. And don't get me wrong, Guillermo Vicario is what he is, but the fact that they would bring in this kid, essentially giving him promises. They made promises to Kinski, and then they go in the opposite direction by bringing in a manager who is 100% a defensive manager. And of course he doesn't fit. He doesn't fit the profile. And that was the thing that boggled my mind to begin with, is the fact that you have a team that is geared toward front-footed football, and they bring in somebody who is the complete opposite, and most of these players don't fit the profile. And so one of the things that you were going to have to do in the transfer window is find players that fit the profile and allow them to compete. And we'll see exactly what that would look like. But the reality was the fact that Johan Lang completely missed the ball. Like I'm actually starting to wonder whether or not these two actually have conversations. Because traditionally speaking, a director of football and a manager, they talk about player profiles, right? Okay, so I play this style of football, and I am a counterattacking, defensive-minded team. So therefore, and especially in the build-up, it's high possession. So I need wingers that are good with the ball at the feet, that don't give it up, that can create space and get off a cross. Not necessarily type of wingers that are going to score goals, but are the type that can facilitate putting balls in the box and giving our striker all the opportunity to score those goals. And then maybe they'll score a goal. Maybe they might get 10 goals in a season or whatever the case may be. That wasn't, by the way, that wasn't Mohamed Kudus. Mohamed Kudus is not that type of player. And it boggled my mind that these were and especially Xavi. Xavi was definitely not one of those players. And it boggled my mind that these were the player profiles that were given to a guy like Thomas Frank. And people wonder why Thomas Frank has failed so far this season. And yes, injuries definitely play a factor into it. I can't deny the fact that he doesn't have a shitload of players at his disposal, and he's got to use essentially academy players on his bench in a Champions League. So so here's the thing. I definitely understand the situation at the moment. But the interesting thing is and it also lets you know the player profile that we have, that they're slow to adapt to a different style of play.
So I mean, the other bonkers thing, talking of Kinski, the other bonkers thing about Kinski was that there was this talk that we would be loaning him out to West Ham and getting their keeper Hermansen this window, and it's just like what
Why?
are you
Why?
why why how in what world does that make sense? Let me be clear. I think you're right. I think Kinski clearly has talent, clearly has ability, and what we've done is we brought in a good young player and then completely stalled his development. And why we've done that, I've no idea. Why we brought in Kinski and then just ruined his development. I hope that he does carry on to be a good keeper. But these are formative years for a goalkeeper. 21 to 25 are absolutely formative years where they learn the trade. They learn mistakes. They make mistakes and learn from them, hopefully, and become the player that they absolutely can be. But it's also I don't really understand I don't understand why we got Kinski in the first place.
Correct.
Because he was either going to come in as number one and we were going to give him the opportunity to develop in our first team, playing in our first team, which I'm not a big fan of, but would make sense. Or you bring in, if you're going to bring in a reserve goalkeeper, you bring in somebody who's already made all of those mistakes, who's already developed, who's already been on
like
that.
like a Mads Hermansen. You know what I mean? Like a guy like that. I mean, that should be like if you're trying to bring in a reserve keeper, fair, because that's the type of reserve keeper that you should bring in, somebody that does have the experience in the league. And you're absolutely right. That has had those experiences. One of the things with Kinski is like he's got to play. Like the only way that Kinski gets better is by playing. And by the way, we didn't have the sample size last year. When he came in, I think he had like maybe 4 games that he played. And by the way, those games he was put right into the fire. I think there was a North London derby, and then there was the FA Cup match against Villa. And it's like, yeah, don't get me wrong, there were some mistakes, but that being said, he's coming from Slavia Prague. He's not coming from Newcastle. You know what I mean? Where he has that baseline experience. And so like chances were good that was going to happen anyway. But that being said, what he absolutely needs is a run of games. He absolutely needs a run of games. There has to be a sample size that if you don't get him, I wouldn't have had a problem if they put him on loan. It wouldn't have bothered me if they gave him the rest of the season. For instance, like if he went down to the championship and played with Middlesbrough or played with Coventry, teams that are pushing at the top of the championship, that are in a promotion race, because it actually promotion races, me personally, bring out the best in every player. There's something about a promotion race that makes players actually go to a higher level. But that being said, it's like you're going to see exactly whether or not Kinski is going to be somebody that you can rely upon in the future. What you can't do is what they're doing right now, which is nothing. They're essentially letting them twist in the wind, which is completely counterintuitive to a player who's 22 years old.
And to us developing an asset, because that's what players are, right? Us developing an asset to gain. This drives me absolutely nuts, Steve. Right, and I've had it out with quite a few content creators. We don't need to go into the deep dive of it, but I just don't think we absolutely clearly Tottenham buy into this youth development model, and in particular we buy players to develop them, not always for small money. We bought Archie Gray to develop him, and we spent 40 million for the privilege, right? Kinski is clearly a player who we have bought to develop, but we're wasting this development. The money that we spent, the capital that we put down on that asset is now just withering away because we are not developing that asset in a way that it could do, or we're not actually exposing that asset to other potential buyers who would then come in and go, do you know what? This person's got 20 professional games in the Premier League, in the top flight, Premier League, Cups, Champions, Europa League, whatever. I can see there's some data there that I can see to back up a purchase and spend some money on him. We don't even do that. We just sit them there. We sit our young players that we buy, a lot of them. We sit them and we don't develop them and we don't bring them forwards. And then do you know what? We don't get good money for them when we sell
Correct.
them, and usually they go for far less than we paid for them. Example in chief, Brennan Johnson. We paid 40-ish million. We got 35. If you are now accounting tricks mean that basically we broke even on that, but the reality is we paid more.
We lost money. We lost money on Brendan Johnson.
There's an accounting trick that means that we actually, because we gained some value out of him over a couple of years.
Sure.
But yeah, absolutely, we lost money on that deal, right? And we just do this again and again and again, which takes me on to my second thing that really drove me nuts. Was Johan Lang said, "Oh, we went and got Sousa because other clubs have this youth development model." Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking around at other clubs. I'm looking around at Man City. I'm looking around at Liverpool.
Chelsea.
I'm looking at
Chelsea.
I'm looking at Arsenal. Chelsea are just bonkers.
Chelsea has a lone army, and that's what they do. Like put it this way, like if they brought in Lucas Bergvall and they brought in Kinski and they brought Archie Gray and a guy like Wilson Odobert, immediately they go out on loan.
They go to
because that's exactly right, and it is to put them in the shop window, because they understand that these players, maybe if you lined up 10 of them, maybe one will come into the first team. But all that is to Chelsea is profit. That's exactly what it is. There is nothing else to it, and it's all about profit. And what they don't do is have these guys in their ranks, because they go out there and they understand that at every single position we are going to need somebody that is, if they're not world class, they're very good Premier League players for their starters and also their deputies as well too. Never do you really see youth players in Chelsea, although they got one on the right side who's unbelievably talented. That right there is the outlier. But for the most part, all that is profit. And it's funny because when you look at this youth model, none of the clubs in Europe, none of the clubs in the Premier League are doing what the Spurs are doing.
Absolutely, but Chelsea do it properly. Even with even with Esteval on that right hand side, he barely played. He was playing a maximum of 10 minutes a game for the first 10, 15 games in the Premier League. He was playing he was coming on doing 10 minutes, and everyone was going, "Oh, he's amazing." Well, do you know what? Coming on for the last 10 minutes of the game, if you've got legs, if you've got a decent amount of technical ability, you can go at your fullback. You can go at the centre back. They're tiring, right? Yep. And you can, but not only that, it gives him the ability, the time and the space to get up to speed in the Premier League. They did it properly. What do? Yep. We drop our players straight in. Archie Gray has a couple of decent games. Everybody's like, now he has to start. No. The best thing for Archie Gray is for him to play 15 or 20 minutes a game and learn in those short periods. That's the best thing for Archie Gray. But I'm looking at Man United. Man United don't buy huge amounts of young players to bring into their first team. So when Johan Lang is saying, we're doing this model that other teams do, other teams don't. Other teams don't do this. Other teams who want, Newcastle don't do it. Aston Villa don't do it, right? They're buying players who are going to come into their first team. Now, they're buying players who are 20, between 22 and 26, some a little bit older, and are going to hit the ground running, or they're going to be ready when they're called on. They're not buying 20-year-old players and hoping they're going to be good in a few years' time. They're just not. There are some youth players, unless it's someone like a Rodgers, or a Palmer, where it's clear that they were going to be on a path, right? So when Johan Lang is saying that as well, that's a massive red flag to me. That's a massive red flag that this guy doesn't understand how to build a top 6 football team. And maybe that's why Villa got rid of him. Maybe that's why Villa demoted him to the youth. And then as soon as they demoted him, that's when Villa took off. When Monchi came in and started actually getting them players who Emery could then put directly into the first team, and then they've layered them and they've flipped them, and they've gone up and climbed to the point where their squad is arguably better than ours now.
Because without a doubt, Rayn. And I don't think it's weird when you see the trajectory of both clubs, because 6 years ago we were in a Champions League final, and Villa was in the Championship.
They were in a playoff final, yeah.
Yeah, 6 years later, we're essentially barking up relegation, while they're essentially a Champions League squad.
Yeah.
They're closer to the Premier League title than we're struggling to stay above the drop. You know what I mean? But let's kind of talk about this long term, though, because for me, this is now multiple failures for a guy like Johan Lang, and quite honestly, he, in his little State of the Union address, he talks about the war chest for the summer, blah 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 blah. That being said, I guess the question that I have for you is he going to be around in the summer? Because I got to be honest with you, right? If you're a guy like Vinny Venkatesham who's looking at this, and he understands what a good director of football looks like, he was at Arsenal. He actually had one of the better ones in world football that worked hand in hand with a guy like Mikel Arteta to build that team. You would think that Vinny Venkatesham understands what good looks like. I guess the question that I have for you is, number one, is Johan Lang going to be here in the summer to actually build it?
Yeah, I think he is. I think Johan Lang's still going to be in role. If that's, I'm not clear what that role is. If that, I'm not. They're still talking about getting a Paratici, a replacement for Paratici. So does that mean that Johan Lang won't be involved with signing first team players? I still don't understand how this works, Steve. It doesn't make sense.
If you want him to focus on youth, then make him the director of the academy.
Yeah,
exactly. You know what I mean? Like just do that, and then allow whoever's coming through the door to be in charge of first team players, whether it's senior or whether it's youth, and just let Johan Lang rebuild the academy.
And don't give him a budget to buy players, because I'm sorry, let's get down to this, right? Let's get down to this. How many players have we bought as youth players and then sold for a profit?
I probably can count them on one hand.
I can't think of any.
I can't think of one.
Let's see.
Troy Parrott? Troy Parrott, maybe?
I mean, if you're scraping the
Keely? Josh Keely, maybe?
I don't think we got any money for Josh Keely, and we're talking hundreds of thousands here, not buying a player for the whole argument for buying an Odebear and a Tell when they're 19, 20. We spent roughly 30 million on each, so 60 million total, and the argument is you buy them now because when they're 25, they'll be 70 million pound players, but our players don't become 70 million pound players. Do you see where I'm coming from? So and we've got enough data, we've got enough years of doing this that we can now say maybe this is an experiment that doesn't work. Maybe this is one of those ideologies. Maybe this is one of those. Maybe this is one of those theories that makes absolute 100% sense, but then doesn't work in practice. Do you know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean.
So stop doing it and do something different. Is where I come from. So if we're going to make him head of the academy, his performance metric should be how many games do we get out of academy or ex-academy players in the first team, because that's also something that we're really bad at. We're really bad at getting minutes out of those players.
The only thing your academy should be doing is enhancing your bottom line when it comes to revenue.
Yeah.
Every year there should be 2 youth players that come through onto your first team and immediately out on loan. Immediately out on loan, because you want to get these youngsters in the shop window. Because at the end of the day, if you can get anywhere between $2 to $5 million for a youngster, all that means is that you're going to have more money to spend on your first team. And Tottenham completely ignores their academy, and it is one of the more outrageous aspects of this board. And it's no coincidence that when Paratici had the full-time gig, he was focused on the academy, and he was bringing kids through and getting them out on loan. It's just the way that it's supposed to be, because if you're restricted with how much you can spend, you have to raise capital somewhere else. And that is the best spot. That is the best spot to do it. 100%. But it's
no surprise that the last time we effectively got youth players developed, and then I make you absolutely right. I've had this argument with various people, and they're like, "You just want us to have youth players." I'm like, no. I don't want us to have youth players. I want us to have an academy where we develop players, and every year we sell, like you say, we sell a couple of them for £5 million, for £5 million, right? You're literally just spinning the academy in the hope that one Harry Kane or similar is going to spin out of it, but you need to spin it by actually producing players who are going to sort of generate revenue. So at the moment,
let's be honest, guys like Dane Scarlett, guys like Alfie Dorrington, Alfie Devine, Jamie Donnelly should have already been sold.
And we should have got money.
That's exactly right. They already should have been sold, because it's plainly obvious that all of these players have no future with the club. So why are they still with the club?
Yeah,
right. Same thing with Brandon Austin.
Well,
you get what I'm saying. And it's like Spurs are notoriously terrible when it comes to getting youth players out the door. And it's like for every wink, for every skip, for every Harry Kane, sure, there are outliers that make it through. 100%, there are outliers that make it through, but for the most part, all these kids that are on our roster, the Byfields of the world, and some of these other kids that, quite honestly, have no future with the club, they should be out on loan, at least for this season, and then in the summer they should be sold. It should be the first piece of business.
I don't agree that they should go out on loan. If
you can sell them, you can sell them.
No, point of contention, I don't think they should all go out on loan. I think that someone like Scarlett, for example, one of the things that I've got against Frank is that he didn't play Scarlett. Is that because I want Scarlett to? Is that because I think Scarlett is a good player? No. Is it because I've got some sort of desperate need for a youth academy product?
It puts him in the shop window.
One second. Exactly. Not only does it put him in the shop window, but also in December and January, we're massively at risk of overworking the decent players that we've got. So you use your Dane Scarlett, you give him 15 minutes, and do you know what? He may do something. That doesn't mean we have to keep him, but it does mean if he gets on the pitch and gets Premier League minutes, it does mean that he gets into, as you say, the shop window for other clubs to come and buy him. And they get some data on how he performs. Now, obviously, that data could be rubbish. and unfortunately, the data that they've got on Dane Scarlett has been coming on in the 89th minute. And like him running around and never touching the ball. I one of the criticisms I have of Frank, and actually I had of Ange, by the way, is that they didn't use the academy players effectively.
I know in the Europa League last year, Ange had no problem playing a Mikey Moore and a Will Lancashire. I'll give him, like, he did it at Galatasaray for Christ's sake, which is not exactly the most the most conducive environment for young players. But Will Lancashire scored a goal.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
then we never saw him again because he got sent off. He got sent off.
For sure. But you get my point, though, right? That those are the type of examples where it goes a very long way to making sure that your bottom line is going to be enhanced. Because when you have a guy like Will Lancashire that scores against Galatasaray, regardless of whether he gets sent off or not, there are going to be teams in the championship that are like, you know what? $10 million for this kid is actually an investment. He's going to help us. He's going to help us get up.
My hot take. So right. my hot take. Having said all of this, my hot take is I think Lange and the transfer team have actually been doing the right thing. Okay. And why have they been doing the right thing? I think they've been trying to minimize the amount of mistakes that they've made in the past. The types of players that they've been bringing in, they've been as sure as they possibly can be, or they've got players on loan. So they've got Paulinho. Why we haven't signed him up, because he's definitely proved to me, and I think to everybody else, that he is he's a player who we want on our roster. I love the term roster. I love that I can come onto a US channel and term roster.
It's on the rooster.
Or Gallagher. This is a good. Xavi. This is a good profile player. Kudus, good profile player. Moani, got him on loan. Please don't sign him because he's not proven. Take the fact that we've got him on loan and we've got a try before you buy as a good way to say maybe he's not suited for the Premier League. The problem is all saying that that they've been doing the right thing, it's still the problem that they're doing it too slowly. They still should have gone and got another couple of players. So I'm trying to give them some credit that I think they're trying to do the right thing. They're just doing it badly, basically.
What I will say is, this is where I will give him credit, that the youth players that he's brought in, Matisse Tell, Odebear, Gray, Bergfall, Kinski, and we will find out about João Souza. We'll find out one way or another. But what I will say is that if, and this is a big if we actually go down and we lose our top players, our youth that he's brought in gets us straight back to the Premier League.
Yeah, no, certainly.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we would need some bolstering.
Yeah, for sure. But you get my point. It's like the youth that we have can literally win the championship without a shadow of a doubt. But that's about as seriously. I think they could win the championship
as long as they're fit.
Yeah, as long as they're fit. But you get what I'm like. So I'll give him credit that his youth is good. They're just inexperienced. And everything that you said is 100% right. There's a way to embed youth, and there's a way not to. There's not a way. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. Because what's interesting about youth is that if you just throw them out there and there's no cover for them, they can have their confidence shattered very quickly.
Yeah, it's sink or swim, right? It's sink or swim mentality.
It's sink or swim.
It's not development. It's not a structured, meaningful development. It's like Tell.
Yeah.
Tell has very much been sink or swim. It's not, he's very much been thrown to the wolves. And unfortunately, Spurs fans, we can absolutely be wolves. If we've got a player who doesn't perform, even though he's 19, 20, we will go for him. And when that player is being exposed in the way that our club exposes them, then not only does their own confidence get damaged and therefore their development, but also their relationship with the fans gets damaged.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to Esteval at Chelsea. Chelsea did the right thing. But for half a season, Esteval looked amazing. 10, 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, coming on as a sub every single game, 10, 15 minutes. So he could build that relationship with the fans because he could do one or two, good things, and everybody could go, whoa, there's a player there. But he wasn't overworked or overexposed. Whereas we, Odebear Tell, we're bringing them, maybe even Bergvall, right? Because Bergvall's made plenty of mistakes. As a shock horror, 18-year-old inexperienced player would, right? We're bringing them in and we're playing them for 90 minutes in our first team. And it's actually not good for them and it's not good for us in the medium to long term. And it's certainly not proven to be good for players and not good for us. Because look where we are. And look how, we go back to how many players that we developed. By the way, Skip, Winks are two examples of the youth academy producing players who we can just spin and sell. So I count both of those as successful academy products. It's the hope is because we are where we are now. The hope is that we're going to start to get players back, and I think one thing we can say is the mentality of Odebear and I think Tell. These guys, they look like they're going to become players, and Gray and Bergvall, they look like they're going to become players. It's just a shame that they've had to develop whilst playing within our first team. That's where I come from.
Mm-hmm. So we have a few more things to talk about, and I do want to get in this before eventually you have to go, Rayn. And I do want to talk a little bit about Christian Romero. And by the way, I give Romero all the credit in the world. His timing is impeccable. The way in which he released that statement on the heels of Johan Lange completely failing in the transfer window. It was, by the way, that his timing, I got to give him all the credit in the world. By the way, number one, what he said was right. It wasn't what he said. It was the manner, for me at least, in the manner of how he said it. And so number one, it shows me that one, Thomas Frank and Christian Romero don't have a relationship. And two, Thomas Frank has no control of certain players. Because there's no relationship, he has absolutely no control. And with what Christian Romero did, it sets a terrible precedent, because now your captain is absolutely taking pot shots at the board. This is your captain. And it doesn't stop anybody else from doing the exact same thing. So it sets a horrible precedent. It's not what he said for me, because it was right. It's how he said it. And maybe this is the difference between cultures, because I come from a place where if I have a problem with somebody, I'm going to pull them aside and I'm going to tell them. So for instance, if I have an issue with my boss, I'm not going to go on Facebook or Instagram and literally bury them behind a screen. I'm going to take 10 minutes and I'm going to sit down with them away from other ears and say, hey, listen, you promised me X, Y, and Z and you haven't delivered. And I have a massive problem. He didn't do that. He went straight to Instagram. And this is your captain. There's a certain level of decorum you have to have as a captain. And one of them is not taking your frustration to Instagram. It is getting together with Johan Lang, Vinny Venkatesham, and Thomas Frank and saying, listen, dude, you guys promised. There were certain promises that were made when I re-signed. And you have failed. And this is and by the way, this is what's going to make me leave this club. You don't do it on Instagram. And so from that standpoint, I got to be honest with you, Rayn. As much as I love Christian Romero, and I think he's a hell of a player, World Cup winner, he is one of the best center backs in Europe. I lost a tremendous amount of respect for him with what he did. I liked what he said, but not in the manner in which he did it.
So I've all my career I've worked with global companies. I actually had an American boss working out of Chicago for a couple of years. I worked for that wasn't an American company, but I've worked for a well-known American company for about 5 or 6 years. So I've got a lot of experience in working in that American world, but it's not that different. It's not. It obviously it has its nuance, but it's not that different to the UK. There's a very sort of Anglo-centric, very Anglo-ish way of dealing with it, which is you don't air your dirty laundry. Correct. You deal with things in-house. He obviously is not of that world. I'm sure he understands it. I've got a couple of things here. Yes, communication is what is it? I can't remember the exact percentages, but they say communication is 60% body language, 30% tone, and 10% what you actually said. And what we're really saying is, because obviously this is in the written form, that his tone is completely off. And it maybe in the written form, tone is like 80% of what people actually sort of intake, and 20% of 20% they remember what you actually wrote. It is right. He is right. And yes, I love the way that you said that. His timing, it's like one of his tackles. His timing is absolutely, it is, isn't it? It's exactly like one of his tackles. It's a real ball buster that he's gone in and he's gone boom like this. It's clearly the way that he actually is. The concern for me, Steve, and I'd be interested to know where you stand on this, and it's a wondering moment because none of us know.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how much of this is said behind closed doors, and the feeling is that it's not listened to, or that promises are made and then they're not actually kept to. And if that is the case, that there have, he's had discussions. He's because obviously he's the captain. He must be having these discussions. That he's been given reassurances and then continuously let down. I've kind of got a little more sympathy with somebody then coming out and being more public, and we've got a long history of this. We've got a long history of people inside our football club, especially head coaches, coming out and publicly and in a very frustrated way saying, I've been trying to say this and I'm not getting what I want. So I'm going to make it clear to you guys that I've been saying this. Poch, Conte, Jose,
Yep.
even to a certain degree, a little bit, and right at the end, said all these things. It seems like all of our head coaches and quite a lot of our footballers, because I'm pretty sure Harry Kane said a similar thing, is that they do end up coming out publicly. Maybe there's a culture internally that we don't. Where do you think? Do you
Yeah,
think this?
I,
Do you think this
I
might be a
definitely agree with
conspiracy
that.
theory?
I say that last one again.
Do you think that? Do you think this is a conspiracy theory, or do you think it has an edge of truth?
I think that number one, the environment or atmosphere within inside the club is absolutely rotten. That's what I think. That because you have high-ranking officials that do not take accountability, you have high-ranking officials that seem to be standing behind people that are clearly not capable of doing the job. When you see a player like Christian Romero who wants to win, he is a guy that is very passionate and he wants to win. And by the way, he wants to do it at Spurs. And so when he saw last season, he saw this club do nothing in the summer window. He saw the club do nothing in the winter window. And yet we still won a trophy. And so there was a feeling that things potentially had changed. But then the player sees this club do nothing in the early portion of the summer window. They waited until July 1st to get the ball rolling. They had they were left with absolute egg on their face with Morgan Gibbs White and Eberechi Eze. They did it. They had it again with Semenyo. And the frustration of it clearly got to them. And I would probably assume, to answer your question, I would probably assume that after the fact, yeah, they're having conversations with it. But understand, this is the second time that he's popped off in 3 weeks. If you remember, he popped off earlier in January, where Thomas Frank has to essentially run cover for him by saying it was a mistake, but it was left up on his Instagram. And he does it again. And so it tells me that, number one, there's no respect. Christian Romero has no respect for Thomas Frank. He has no respect for Johan Lange. I guarantee you, by the way, here's what I actually guarantee you. I think Christian Romero probably had more respect for Daniel Levy than he does for these dudes. Because at the end of the day, Daniel Levy is consistent. He is exactly what he is. There is no variable. Daniel Levy, day in and day out, is the exact same dude, and you can count on it. And if he tells you that X is going to happen, it's going to happen. Right. Regardless of how you and I feel, there's a 25-year history of Daniel Levy doing the exact same shit year in and year out. And so from that, I guarantee you, that's the thing. It's like, as if you and I were very good friends and we got to know each other, and maybe there's quirks about you that I don't necessarily like, but if I understand that you are 100% authentic, I actually respect that.
Yeah,
because you're not trying to be somebody that you're not.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I think that's where this is, to the point where it's either A, he's doing this because he wants change, or B, he's trying to leave the club.
And you know what? For me, Steve, it doesn't make a difference which of those it is. It doesn't.
I agree.
Because I do get, a lot of fans. I've seen a lot of fans, and I understand and respect it. Are saying he's doing this because he wants to leave the club, and they think that is a black mark. And I understand and respect that. I'm old enough to remember the whole Sol Campbell era.
That's a great example right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember that. I remember a couple of my friends being absolutely broken by that drama with Sol Campbell, And I don't think I've ever really got over it. That's why I now think of players as assets, because
Right.
that's what they now are to me effectively. I don't build any kind of parasocial relation, even though I'm a season ticket holder, right? I don't build any parasocial relationships with footballers at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club
Yeah,
at
you
all
should.
whatsoever. Um, so so is for me, it doesn't. For me personally, it doesn't matter whether he's either A, said this because he is the captain of the football club, he is seeing a problem which we all know is there. It's quite clear. They're talking about it. It's very public. They're talking about it on Sky Sports. They're talking about it on Peacock, right? They're talking about it on I don't
Yeah.
know, on
Everywhere.
the zone.
Yeah.
Everywhere's talking about the lack of players that are at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club, and that potentially, maybe we should have done something about it. So whether he's doing that because he's the captain and he feels like he should be speaking out, or whether he's doing it because he's decided he's had enough of this, of this drama show, and
Hmm.
wants off of this ship and wants to go somewhere else. I don't think it makes much difference. Both are rooted, both are rooted in the reality that, as you've been saying all throughout the show, Frank, the club, the fans, the players, the squad have been left in a really bad position.
Yeah. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. And by the way, I don't want to see Christian Romero go, because that center back partnership, when it is absolutely in form, is far better than me personally. I think it's far better than Alderweireld and Vertonghen. I really do. The level of talent those guys possess, and considering that both of them are in their prime and they're only getting better, um, is something that you don't break up. But there is a but. If he has to go, number one, it enhances our transfer budget. That's number one. And number two, we have Luka Vuskovic, who is ready to come in and start next season. And you have a fallback in Kevin Danso. So from the right hand side of that partnership, you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. And by the way, Luka Vuskovic is everything that we think he is. That kid's amazing. But all right, so let's and by the way, and if that was our center back pairing for next season, Van de Ven and Vuskovic, me personally, I just think we'll be okay.
With Danzo
Yeah,
and
with Danzo as yeah.
Dragusin as the backups, I'm more than happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
I think Dragusin has proven that that he's
You like
really,
Dragusin. You like
I think
Dragusin.
yeah, I think he's a decent player. Again, people forget he's quite young, right? So he should not be developing and learning in our first team. He should be playing one game here, one game there, playing as subs, and developing that way. But at the weekend, I thought he was decent.
Mm-hmm.
Against City, Haaland originally was locked down by Romero, and so Haaland, the guy is. You need at some point to see Haaland in the flesh. He's such an intelligent, but Steve, where you get like the benefit of watching something on TV. You get replays, you get close up, you get all of that kind of stuff that you don't get in the stadium. And then in the stadium, you get some other benefit. You get some you miss out on those, but you get some benefits where you can see the wider pitch. You can decide that your little personal camera is going to zoom in over here on this, which the TV camera, the sports TV camera isn't zooming in on. And I quite often like to just focus on one or two players and just look at them. Over the last couple of years, when he came to us, Semenyo was one of them, by the way. Semenyo has been absolutely amazing every time he's come and played against us, which is why in the summer, when people were saying, "Oh, Savio, Semenyo," I was like, "Go and get Semenyo. He is fantastic." And then he had that amazing game against Liverpool, and everyone went, "Oh, Semenyo's amazing," and I'm like, "Too late. It's too late. It's gone. Too late. It's gone."
You know, that, by the way, that match against Manchester
Wait a
City.
minute. So Haaland got no joy out of Romero. So what he did was he drifted. He's so smart. He drifted constantly onto Dragusin, and then Dragusin locked him down as well. He did a really good job on him at the weekend. And Haaland obviously didn't score.
Well, that being said, though, that goal by Ryan Cherokee was the bad of Dragusin as well too, because he didn't close down Cherokee, and he could have closed him down. Of course, Ryan Cherokee, that goal was literally pitch and catch. It was probably one of the more easier goals that he was going to score, because not only did Dragusin not close him down, but Vicario was caught flat-footed on that goal as well too. He was out of position. But all right, so let's go ahead and finish this one up, by the way, with tomorrow's game versus Manchester United at Old Trafford, the Theatre of Dreams. And boy, oh boy, are these two teams going in the opposite direction. Under Ruben Amorim, it was just a clustered mess. And it wasn't necessarily the formation, it was the stubbornness and how he was trying to play players in certain positions, right? Instead of having Bruno Fernandes as your out and out 10 pulling the strings, he was kind of playing as a withdrawn midfielder, almost as a holding midfielder. Of course, Kobe Manu was essentially nowhere to be found. But as soon as Michael Carrick comes in, he puts in a formation that is quintessentially Manchester United. Players that were brought in to play a certain position now are actually playing those positions. And sure enough, Manchester United under Michael Carrick has gotten very good results. And it's not going to be a surprise to me if they finish in a European spot. It's not going to be a surprise. That being said, our Premier League form has been absolutely dreadful over the last couple of months. And normally speaking, if this was a situation where we were playing against Ruben Amorim, I'd probably be a little bit more excited for this match. But it feels like Michael Carrick has got this team absolutely running in the right direction. And of course, when it comes to Tottenham Hotspur, it's going to be interesting to see exactly how we line up and who's going to be in the lineup tomorrow. I would probably assume that we're going to be playing in a 5-3-2. With all things considering, it looks like Thomas Frank has kind of settled on that over the last couple of games, and because of our lack of availability with certain players, that's probably going to have to be the formation until certain players come back.
Yeah, but we've been playing a very intelligent 5-3-2, haven't we? We've been playing a really where they actually pivot to a 4-4-2 when we've got the ball. So obviously we're all expecting Van de Ven to come back into the team tomorrow, certainly into the squad, but I think he'll probably come back into the team. And the way that our centre backs, and I come back to your point that I think they're a fantastic pairing. But I also think the addition of Paulinho and Danzo, in particular, alongside Romero and Van de Ven, has really added an extra dimension to us. Because in defence, where we're going into a 3 or a 5, whatever you want to call it, let's say 5-3-2 formation. And I'm loving the two players up front, by the way, as well. But then going forwards, either Romero, because he loves doing his forward runs, doesn't he? And he's been very, very effective, or Van de Ven join the midfield to bolster the midfield, either one of them. and the way that they then sort of shift and rebalance the way that the team and the formation is to take into account that either one of those players, because Danzo will always sit, either one of those players has decided to go forwards, is so smart. That smacks of really, really good training ground work by those players. Hopefully this is hopefully this is an output of many minutes with Thomas Frank's training training team. That's the hope, because we hope that we're going to get some kind of value out of them. But I think these players are really, we've got some really smart players, and the way that they're managing the games, the way that they're managing each other in game is really, really great. So hopefully, yes, I agree with you. I expect us to go back to a back 3-5, whatever you want to call it, and with probably Paulinho dropping in alongside Romero and Van der Ven.
Is Van de Ven going to be available tomorrow?
So we've been told that he's back on. He's been training this week.
All right.
The question is he training enough to be in the squad or the team? That's going to be the question. And Frank, again, looking at Frank and the way that he manages the team, he doesn't often bring players straight back into the team when they've been injured.
I would agree.
Trying to be a bit of a student of this coach's personality, he does seem to be very, very cautious about bringing people back straight away. Like Solanke, it was 2 or 3 games before he was back, and I think even then, he probably shouldn't have played. He probably shouldn't have played the full 90 minutes. He probably should have against, was it Dortmund? Probably shouldn't have played the full 90 minutes there. But so I'm hoping that we see Van der Ven. I'm hoping that Van der Ven is back up to speed.
And now that Danso's out, it puts the onus on a guy like Radu Dragusin. And that's why Van de Ven is going to be absolutely monumental, because if he's back, let's remember that when Radu Dragusin came over, he was playing in a team that actually played in a back 3, and he was anchoring the right side of that back 3. He was, Radu Dragusin was developed in that type of system where they're playing in a back 3. And so if Mickey Van de Ven is available, then your back 3 really is VDV, Romero, and Dragusin off the right. And it allows João Palhinha to go right back into the midfield, where me personally, as much as I thought he did a good job in that back 3, it's not sustainable. João Palhinha in the back 3 is not sustainable. He's not a center back. He can do it for a one-off, fantastic. But that being said, if Van de Ven's available, he's got to be playing in that holding midfield role. Because, really, when you look at the effectiveness of a João Palhinha, he's at his strength when he's roaming around, putting out fires, making tackles, and really just, especially in the second half, it's also building momentum. He's very good at doing that. As far as the wing backs, obviously it's going to be Destiny Udogie on the left. Who do you have on the right?
I mean, we don't know. Is Spence back? Don't know. I don't know if Spence is back. So
that would probably mean Archie Gray.
Archie Gray, our utility guy. I mean, for the amount of hate that this kid gets, and I'm not one who thinks that a player's age should be brought into account. I think if they're playing in the first team, then they should be ready for the first team. And whilst I don't judge them, I certainly will judge the transfer team and the squad that they've built. and the coach and the players that they're deciding to play. But Gray's utility is second. I can't remember a player. I can't remember the last player who had such a high degree of utility playing in multiple different positions. And he may not be playing as an 8 out of 10 in those positions, but he's not lower than a 6 out of 10. And the fact that he can do that in so many different positions really does bode well that this kid, who's been, through no fault of his own, thrown into our first team. We've got to develop this guy, Steve. We've got to develop
100%.
him into 100%. A good player, because there has to be a good player there. There has to be.
You have to. That's why having João Palhinha back for the next season is going to be immense. Because you have to decide what is the future for a guy like Rodrigo Betancourt. That's the first question that I have with this, right? Because if you are in a scenario where, as of right now, we have 4 holding midfielders: Palhinha, Betancourt, Yves Bissouma, and Archie Gray. And so from that standpoint, you have to make this decision, right? So what's Rodrigo Betancourt for next season? Is he a part of the fold? And if you bring back João Palhinha, then you have 2. You have 2.
Yep.
And this is where he gets, he kind of gets lost, because if you are a team that's trying to compete higher up in the Premier League, then Archie Gray's minutes are going to be limited, which means one of the things you absolutely cannot do is bring him out for the occasional cup tie, early in the season. And then obviously next year there's not going to be Europe, so you don't have those midweek games. And so if you don't advance in the Carabao Cup, then you have to wait for the FA Cup to roll around in January for him to get back on the pitch. Maybe he gets the occasional 10 minutes at the end of the game. But that being said, one of the things you absolutely cannot do is stall his development at this stage. And so that is the question, because if Rodrigo Betancourt leaves in the summer, your backup to João Palhinha is going to be Archie Gray. And at that point, he's going to get a lot of run. But if they decide to keep Rodrigo Betancourt around as I guess you can say as a safety net for a guy like João Palhinha, me personally, I would like to see Archie Gray go out on loan.
Yeah,
because because the difference between him and a guy like Lucas Bergvall is Bergvall is going to see the field, whether that is being a deputy to a guy like Conor Gallagher or being a deputy at the attacking role. He's going to see a lot of the field where Archie Gray may or may not. And so from that standpoint, you probably put him out on loan and you let him develop and let him get game time. It's the exact same scenario with Antonin Kidsky. But that being said, that's the reality. And it's like, I don't like, by the way, because in a perfect world, Pedro Porro's you're starting right back, and you have Jed Spence, who's his deputy. So Archie Gray can't get time there. And you're certainly not going to play him at center back. So it's like, here's the thing. It's like, if I had a young kid like this, and I knew for a fact that I had 2 players in João Palhinha and Rodrigo Betancourt playing at that 6, I would take Archie Gray and I'd put him on loan because he needs to play. Even if it's for 6 months, the first half of the season. And you can bring him back in January.
I'm not a big fan of loans, so
I'm not either. But that being said, it's there for a reason. It's there for a reason.
Absolutely.
I actually think
I'm interested. One second. I'm interested that you're focusing on us letting Bentancur go when I think the far more suitable candidate is Bissouma.
Yeah, well, don't get me wrong. He's going to be gone anyway.
Yeah.
Like I didn't mention Bissouma because he's going to leave anyway. So as a matter of fact, I think at the end of the season, his contract expires. He's going to be gone anyway. But you still have 3 holding midfielders. And the reality is, knowing Thomas Frank, if Palhinha comes back and he has two holding midfielders that do a job for him, it means that Archie Gray is not going to see the field a lot, and that stalls his development. And I don't want to see that because I think there's a special player there.
Steve, this is Tottenham Hotspur we're talking about.
I get it. All right, so the midfield, I get it.
Having four central midfielders might not be enough. It might not be enough. we might end up, with just one at one point. So I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I think he'll probably get time.
But that being said, if Rodrigo Betancourt goes and your deputy is Archie Gray, he'll see the field.
I think the more interesting thing is if we carry on with this three at the back formation and two central midfielders and three up top, which includes Xavi playing as like an inside left and somebody else playing as like an inside right, like Odobert. Whether they go out wide or whether they stay, as that inside forward alongside, looking along the line of the penalty area, right? You know what I mean, like the box, and they're looking along that line rather than staying the 10 yards outside the penalty area. It's not just those midfielders that we're talked about. You've then got to start bringing in Conor Gallagher, Bergvall, Sarr. So actually that only adds credence to the argument that you're saying. All of a sudden, we've gone from 4 central midfielders, and arguably 4 probably, going for one spot, because I'd love us to go back to the Poch model of a 6 and an 8, like almost in a line, right?
By the way, Archie Gray, when he's playing that box to box role and he's kind of that late box crasher, he's been actually really good.
He has, hasn't he? He definitely needs to build. Look, Steve, something that I say to quite a few people, especially when they're criticizing 18, 19, 20-year-olds, is you have to remember that human males don't fully physically develop until they're 21, 22. That's why in the States, NFL players don't aren't, yes, they're playing college football. College football is really competitive, but they're not playing elite level until they hit a decent age. And they're certainly not playing elite level with 25 to 30-year-olds when they're 18. And people forget that these guys have got a lot of growing to do into their bodies. So he's the only thing about Archie Gray is a little bit lightweight, but that will come. He just needs to build that bulk into and that will come as he goes 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. It's just so, do you know what? Maybe this all just adds weight. You might have persuaded me that he needs it needs to be a good loan though. It needs to be a good loan.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and you know what? I wouldn't have a problem if it's in the championship playing for a promotion candidate. But he just needs, even if it's for 6 months, he just needs to be playing. All right, we only got about 5 minutes left. So who's your midfield 3?
So we're assuming that it's Dragusin, Van der Ven, Romero at the back. We've got Gray, Udogie. So in the midfield 3, it has to be Paulinho. It's going to be Paulinho. Gallagher, who's been fantastic. He's been absolutely fantastic for us. And he looks like he's come back refreshed from AFCON. Mate Sarr. He looks like he's come back. A player who's raring to go again.
Yeah, if Paulinho's got to drop back into the center back role, then my midfield 3 is going to be Gallagher, Sarr, and Xavi. And if Paulinho is available for the midfield, then it's going to be Paulinho, Gallagher, and Xavi. Who is your attacking two?
Well, so you wait a minute.
5-3-2. 5-3-2.
5-3-2. No, yeah. See, I wouldn't be playing 5-3-2.
What, a 3-4-2-1? 3-4-2-1?
3-4-2-1.
Okay.
And in the centre midfield of the four, I would have so if we've got Dragusin in centre of defence, it would be Paulinho and
Yeah.
Gallagher. Actually, do you know what? It's a bit of a it's.
Well, if it is, by the way, if it is 3-4-2-1.
I'm bringing in Xabi on the left. So whether it's a three central midfield or
right.
whether it's a two and then Xabi is playing.
Yeah. So if it is a 3-4-2-1, then yes, my midfield is Paulinho and Gallagher, and then my two high tens off the left is Xavi, off the right is Odegaard, and then up top is Solanke.
Yeah. And if we play 5-3-2, who would you have up top?
If it's a 5-3-2, then Xavi's going to be underneath as the 10, and then off the right-hand side, it is Solanke, and then as a false 9, that hybrid false 9, Wilson Odegaard.
Okay.
Wilson Odegaard has to play.
So we've got the same players, we're just shifting them around.
Yeah.
Basically. No, yeah, I completely agree. Do you agree that Solanke coming back has added? It's like
without a doubt.
He's not 9% of the team. He's added 20% of the team. That ability to go and finish up top.
Well, but it's just more. It's more for me just finishing. Obviously, the finishing is important, but for the style in which Thomas Frank likes to play, because he likes to play long. So you need a center forward that can hold the ball up and distribute. And Solanke is is actually the only center forward we have that can do that. Right? There's a difference between Richarlison, RKM, and Solanke. The difference is Solanke can do that, and then off the shoulder make a turn and get into the box, where you saw multiple times that RKM and Richarlison just get bullied off the ball.
Yeah,
there's a difference.
Yeah.
All right, so this is the big one here, Rayn. This is the big one here. Your prediction.
I mean, it is a head over heart thing, isn't it? Because United are on really good form. If I don't know if Dermot's watching,
4-0.
If exactly. If Dermot's watching, 3-0. If Dermot isn't, if Dermot isn't watching because he's prepping for our show in 15 minutes, then I think we're in for a 2-1 loss tomorrow.
Well, my thing is that, again, if Ruben Amorim were in charge, I probably would say 2, maybe even 3-1 Spurs, but they look like a completely different team. And you're starting to see the best of Rayn and Bemo. And they're getting production out of their striker position. And from that standpoint, their attacking three looks completely different. And once Carrick put Bruno Fernandes back into the 10, it's been night and day. And also Kobe Mainoo's look good. Now, granted, what I will say is their center back pairings, that's still their weakest link. But they certainly, there's going to be areas that we possibly could exploit. But that being said, they're on an unbelievable run of form right now. And the way that I looked at that game against Man City, number one, Pep Guardiola took his foot off the gas at halftime, and that allowed us to get forward. And we were actually operating with the ball through the middle of the park, which is something we had trouble doing. And when you allow Xavi to pull those strings, all of a sudden it looks something actually quite amazing. I don't know if Michael Carrick is the type of guy who's going to let the foot up off the gas. So from that standpoint, I'm wondering where our goals are going to be coming from.
So what's your prediction?
3-1 United.
Yeah. I think we can. I think they are going to hit a bad patch under Carrick. It won't continue. I don't think.
Correct.
I don't think we're going to be the start of that bad patch. I think.
By the way, yeah, they're definitely getting a new manager bounce. But what I will say is that it's going to play out two different ways, Rayn, and you know this because you and I have talked about this. That number one, we're either going to start like crap, like we did against City, and we're going to essentially kick off the entire first half, chalk off the entire first half, and we'll go into the break either down 1 or down 2. And then all of a sudden, it's going to, we're going to try to find our way in the game in the second half. Or we're going to start on the front foot, trying to nick an early goal and then take our foot off the gas to try to protect a 1-0 lead like we did earlier.
Team of two halves. Team of two halves.
Yeah. We have yet to see. We have yet to see a match this season where we actually played 2 consecutive halves. So from that standpoint, that's my biggest worry. And also Frank's substitution patterns. He got it right against City, but more often times than not, he gets it wrong. But that's going to do it for us because Rayn, you got to jump off. What's actually on slate this weekend for Tottenham Hotspur Football Club till we die? What is in the works this weekend?
We've got the pre-match show that we do every Friday. And we're starting earlier at 7:00. Although I haven't had contact with Dermot, so it may be a little bit later. We've got quite a few sort of link ups with some Man United channels who big up AK. Who Dermot's got quite a wide network and contact with, and then obviously tomorrow. The full game day experience on THFC Till We Die, which I'll be on a little bit because it's an away game, not a home game. I don't do home games because I'm there.
Because you're there. Yeah. Well, yeah. And by the way, I will be in London for the North London Derby at the end of this month. So I am absolutely looking forward to it, and maybe I'll get a hold of you. And we'll meet up pre-match. All right, so that's going to do it for us. Just a quick reminder to make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and also hit the notification bell. And while you're actually subscribing to my channel, head over to THFC Tottenham Till We Die and show Derma and Rayn some love as well too. Just a quick note that tomorrow morning I will be hosting the Irish Hotspur because Jack and Dave, it's 1:00 in the morning out on the West Coast, so automatically that takes Jack out of the equation, and Dave has a family obligation, so I will be hosting tomorrow for the Irish Hotspur, and of course that's going to be a fantastic experience for me because quite honestly, Jack and Dave have been very good to me, and so I would like to repay that favor. So that's happening tomorrow morning, and then of course we have the Hotspur live stream. We're Spurs versus United from the Theatre of Dreams up there at Old Trafford. And so that will be on the channel as well, too. And then I think that's probably going to do it for the weekend. Maybe I'll squeeze something in on Saturday night. But, of course, Sunday is Super Bowl Sunday. And, of course, that is a family day for me as my Seattle Seahawks are actually playing in the big game. So that should be wildly entertaining. So there's a lot of good things coming up here on the channel. Rayn, I want to say thank you. And any last parting shots?
Yeah, I'm a Patriots fan. I've been a Patriots fan. I've been a Patriots fan since the 80s. As it goes, I endured the long wilderness before the Belichick Brady period.
Oh, all right. So you were there in the Pete Carroll era when Pete Carroll was the head coach.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a massive NFL fan. I played NFL at university. I was a defensive linebacker.
Oh, wow.
University. I always watch. I always tune in for the Super Bowl. It's one of my I absolutely love. I absolutely love NFL. So I'm hoping that we win on Sunday.
Yeah, I'm also hoping the same. But for me, it's an opportunity to hang out with my family and see my niece and nephew, and just have a really good time. So that is going to happen on Sunday. But between now and then, we have some really good programs. So please do make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. Rayn, I want to say thank you. And I also want to say thank you to G Giant 68, AK Shegs. And it looks like we also had Adrian was in the house as well, too. So I want to thank those guys who stopped by in the chat. And to those that are tuning in through X and also here on YouTube, man, it's been a pleasure. I will see you tomorrow for the Hotspur live stream. And as we part ways, as we do all the time, Kulusevski forever.
Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.